Good morning, it's Sandy with s.ranellearts. Today I am going to be using my NeoLucida Camera XL, get a little shot of that, to trace a three-dimensional object. I have an unboxing and demo video of this on my channel if you're interested in it. But I'm going to be looking through this eyepiece. So let me do this. I'm trying to do this with my... And you can see in the eyepiece, the snail that I am showing is projected down on my paper. And so I look through the eyepiece, and then I'm going to trace the as much of the detail as I want to for this snail onto my paper. I am using Arches, and this is a sketchbook that I made for myself using, I think it's a Coptic binding, I forget now, but I made this really good sized one with some sheets of 22 by 30 paper that I cut, and I reserved a decal edge, and so that's what I will be tracing on. I'm not going to film the tracing because I tried it this morning a little bit earlier and I ended up with just a big shot of my hair. So I'll get this all set up and I'll trace it, and I'll come back and show you the finished product. Again, you can see me actually using it and tracing in that video of the unboxing of the NeoLucida, but I can see the light of the snail in there, so you can see what I'm looking at. All right, let me get that started and I'll be back. All right, there he is, my little finished snail. I put the spiral in and I put his little eye in, and I can't remember if I mentioned that this is for the World Watercolor Nature prompt, and for the Nature series it's the snail prompt, and this is actually a lamp that I have had for years that I just love, and he's got a little switch over there. We're not going to pan too much because then you'll see my kitchen and how I haven't cleaned it because I am busy painting, but you know, priorities. Anyway, so I even sketched a little bit of his shadow in. He's just the cutest little thing, and I just love him. And I sketched his little shadow in, and now we're gonna pull out the watercolors and put the camera Lucida away and get to work. All right. So today I will be using Lemon Yellow. This is the Winsor & Newton Professional Watercolors. And then from Daniel Smith, I'll be using Quinacrodone Gold, Peryline Red, Moonglow. I'm going to try to sneak in a little bit of the Lunar Blue because I love it, and the green Apatite Genuine. All right, so I'll move those off to the side. Bring my snail down here. I have my brushes ready to go, and I think I will be using number 8 the most. Let's not try to say predominantly and then mess it up. All right, so today's plan, I've got the colors in my palette, and today's plan is to do some glazing. So I want to talk a little bit about the glazing technique while I work. I have used my new camera NeoLucida to sketch out with graphite in hopefully very light pencil, but I think I will go especially around the shell where it will mostly be lighter. I will go ahead and take away a little bit of those lines. The snail himself is mostly a brown color, so I'm not too worried about these pencil lines showing, but I would like it to be a little bit lighter here. So as long as I can see what I traced, I'll go back with my kneaded eraser and just pull a little of that out. Now, for the glazing, I'm going to take clear water and I am going to just wet the whole snail, shell and body, and then come back and put my color in. Okay, for the glazing technique, I am using since I'm using Arches paper and it's a thirsty paper, I am using, I have to gauge how much water I'm putting on here because I don't want puddles of water, but I need to bring the water all the way up to the lines of the drawing. Unless I plan on going back and erasing the lines, which I could have done with the shell, especially since it's going to be lighter, but we'll make it work. All right, so I'm coming all the way up to the lines of my drawing with the water. I wanted smooth, even sheen. So I'm going to move it around, and I can see that I've missed some areas, and that's okay because I think I'll leave those as highlights and see how that comes out. So there are a couple of areas though that I do need to make sure I get up to the line of the snail. And I want to get his little antennae. I'm sure I'm going to say that wrong, so half the time I'll probably call them feelers, just because that's what we used to call them when I was a kid. All right, so I'm checking. I'm looking for no puddles of water. I'm going to avoid his eye area. Everywhere that there is water, the paint will go. So I want it to be everywhere I want it. Now, the first layer that I'll be using is lemon yellow. So I'm going to take my lemon yellow and make myself a nice puddle of it, and I want to cover the whole snail with this lemon yellow. And I need to make sure I'm not adding any other colors, so I'm not too worried about that. I need to make sure the amount of water I'm using matches the amount in my water on the page. I don't want it too wet, so we'll see what that's like. All right, so I'm going to go, that's actually not too bad. It's a nice sheen, it's a nice amount of water, and I want a nice light layer here, so I might actually want it a little bit looser. It doesn't mean it has to be wetter, it just means it has to have less pigment in it. So I'm watering it down a little bit. I'm not going to worry too much on his body because this will eventually be brown. I'm going to stop trying to say predominantly and we'll just say eventually. Now, for glazing, I need to allow each layer that I'll be using to dry in between. So I will come back after this is dry. I'm going to actually probably use the blow dryer on this. But I wanted to say that what I'm doing in glazing is I'm layering pure pigment, or rather I'm layering just a solitary color. Instead of mixing my colors on the palette or on the paper, I am going to just lay one color on top of the other. And in using this technique, what happens is you allow the under color, the base colors or the colors below to show through, and it gives a nice glow. And since this is a lamp and he's nice and bright, in fact I kind of want a little bit more brightness right there. Just put a little bit more lemon yellow right there. Since he's glowing, he's a lamp and he's glowing, I wanted to go ahead and use this glazing technique. All right, let me dry this and I'll be back and I'll talk more about it. All right, now the thing with glazing is you want to see the glowing. So when you check it for dryness, you want to use the back of your hand and not the front of your hand, which has the oils. You'll see me, of course, use the front of my hand because that's how I am, and I'm impatient and I don't remember those kinds of things, but that's what you should do. All right, so the next thing I need to do is come back in and layer another coat of clear water on top of this lemon yellow. So it is important to keep clean water. I have a tendency to use both waters for my dirty brush and then have to go through and clean them halfway through. So I'm going to try, in fact, maybe I'll put my dirty one on one side, my clean one on the other side, and see if that helps. Anyway, I'm going over with clean water. So All right, you can see that I'm holding up the paper. You want to be careful to take it right to the line. So I need to see where I have gone. This is a time-consuming technique, and you wouldn't use it all the time. You don't want to use it for a whole painting. This is just a little snail. Not that little, actually. But, I do want to use it for this demo, but it takes a long time to do all this glazing, but the results are worth it. All right, so I've wet over the lemon yellow. I see one little area. I don't want to be too wet here, but I want to go all the way up to the shell line so I can see by moving it around under my light what I have missed. So you want a nice even sheen. You don't want any puddles, nothing too wet, and that looks pretty good. And I could use a little bit more water. You may have to add water more than once, and if that's the case, do it. I think I'm good though. So my next step is to take my Quinacrodone Gold, and this is just such a beautiful ambery kind of a color. And I want to lay it over the lemon yellow to be sure that I get the lemon yellow. I want the lemon yellow to show through, and that'll give me that glow. But I really want the shell and the base of the body to be this color. So I'm going to probably need more than that. And I want, remember, to use the right amount of water when you lay it over. So this takes practice, and you want to test it out. And I get it wrong all the time. I have to keep going back over and practicing again. But I want the right amount of water. That looks good. I could probably use a tiny, whoa, that is way too much pigment. All right, I'm going to come over and see if I can fix that. I just want a little bit more pigment there, but again, you want it nice and watery because you want the yellow underneath to show through. It's a little wet, so I'm coming over to my paper towel, and I'm just going to take a little of the water off and then come back in, and that should do what I want. I'm starting on the body first because that is going to be darker, so if I go too dark or if I make mistakes, I don't mind because this will be the brown. And then I can make them on this part of the body and see what to change when I get to the shell, because the shell will be mostly these two colors. So you lay in a nice light wash of this color, and you can see the lemon yellow coming up through it. And the two together just give you this really nice color. All right, again, I want to make sure I come to the line. All right, I'm going to speed this up. All right, the Quinacrodone Gold is down. That layer is down, and you should be able to see some of the lemon yellow coming through, and that's the reason for glazing. I'm going back over it with yet another coat of water, so you can see why this is very time consuming, and you wouldn't do a whole painting of it unless you had all the time in the world. I'm going to try to attempt to remove any of the lines that I can, but I have a feeling once I put that yellow over it, I'm sunk. And that's okay. We'll just go with the flow. All right, I'm going to re-wet this with water and come back with another layer of Quinacrodone Gold on the shell, and I'll be working towards achieving a brown on the body. First, because I want to give that extra attention and I don't want to worry about the body as of right now, I've re-wetted, and I'm coming back in with another layer of the Quinacrodone Gold, and I'm still using this nice and light layer or mixture because I want it to not to overpower all of the under layers. But you can take the same color and glaze right over top of it, and you'll get that darker. So my plan here now is to go over most of this shell with this layer of Quinacrodone Gold. I'm going to avoid taking over the center because the center is where the lamp, when you turn the lamp on, that's what glows. And so I'm going to go over most of it, but not that. And then I'll show you the technique that I want to use. So this one I will talk through this part because I'm almost there. So I put my extra layer of Quinacrodone Gold on. I haven't touched the middle. So the next thing I'm going to do is, again, come around, hold it up if you have to make sure that you have hit each time. You want to make sure you go over those lines so that you don't see the line dried from the previous layer. All right, it looks pretty good. I'm not super worried about down here by the body because I'm going to let that run in, I think. I did not do the center. Whoops, as usual, cleaning my dirty water. Or dirty my clean water. All right, I want this to be clear. So I'm going up against this paper towel to get clear, and I don't think that's on camera. And then I'm going to take clear water, not very much, and I'm going to move some of the darker, the clean brush every time. I'm going to move some of the darker towards the center to make sure that I'm not having lines of dark. I'm trying to blend them in. So clean water each time, a little bit of the dark. I didn't put a lot of gold on here, so it's not really making a difference. All right, I just made a big no-no. So let me see if I can slow down. This happens to me all the time. All right, I want that yellow out of there. So luckily it's quick. Tear off a paper towel, and I'm going to come over and dab that, and then I'm going to come over with a little bit more plain clear water and just scrub that with my brush a little bit and touch it right there on the end, and it's not too bad. You can hardly see it and would hardly know it was there. Let's try one more just for good measure. It's looking a little yellow. The water's looking yellow, and so maybe when next time I stop the camera I will change my water. All right, dab up a little of that, and I'm going to come through and wet the body. All right, now my next plan is to come in with a little of the Peryline red, and I'll bring this over here and get some of that. Now I could mix the Peryline with the Quinacrodone gold and get a really nice color, but since I'm glazing and I'm layering colors, we're going to see what we get by doing it this way. And you know, you certainly could make your brown and go ahead and just add the brown, but layering to get the brown will give us different results. And so I'm going to continue with this plan, and I'll be back. Can you see, I'll move this around a little bit, see if that does better for the camera. I never know with this filming until after it's done. But can you see how luminescent this appears? You can see both the lemon yellow and the Quinacrodone gold through this layer of Peryline red. And I haven't even gotten to making this brown yet. In fact, I like the way this looks. I could add the detail and stop right there because this color is so pretty. But I'm not going to. So I am going to put more on the body to make it brown. I'm liking the way the shell looks. I might do one more layer of the Quinacrodone gold just to give it just one more little bit of oomph. And then I will go in and do the details. And that'll be my little snail. So we are going to be working on re-wetting. So this, as you can see with glazing, has to be done every time, and you see me checking to make sure that I've come up to the light, so that or come up to the line, so that each new layer of paint meets the old layer of paint and doesn't leave. Well, here's like a kind of a dark line there. So that is definitely important. And another thing I wanted to say, is when I'm blow drying it, as you can see in the sped up version, it gets a little warped, so I just come to the back and blow dry the back, and that flattens out the other side for the most part. All right, now that his body is wet, I'm going to come in with, let's see. I'm going to use this Peryline green. And I'm just going to go over that. This is such a cool color, but I don't want the whole thing to be green. Powerful color, and it kind of takes over. So I'm going to come back over the shell, and I'm going to use the Peryline red. And I believe I called this green that I put on here Peryline green. It is not Peryline green, it is green Apatite genuine. But the red is Peryline red. And I am going to take that and put that on the shell because I just really like the way it looked when I put it on the body. So I'm using just the lightest of washes, and I'm starting around the outside. Touch more pigment just to not be so watery. And I'm coming around the outside, and I'm just going to let that sort of run in because it's darker around the outside of his shell. So while I do that, then I'm going to work on bringing some of that into the center, but not all the way. So you can kind of see that I'm going near the spiral, and I haven't decided what to do with the spiral. I think I'll just do that in detail. But I'm using this Peryline red to get some red going almost like stripes. They start out wide and they get smaller. It's hard to show you. I can't show you the reference photo because there is no reference photo. I'm just winging it. And then on the inside spiral, I want to put those in the opposite places. And then I want to stay gentle around the part that I'm keeping as the lightest part to glow. All right. I'm hoping that that will blend nicely, but I'm going to still try this a little tiny bit of this blending technique with clear water just to make sure it doesn't look like I'm going to have any hard lines. It looks like it blended really nicely. Oops, I could use a little bit of red up there against the line. You want to, you really want to do small sections at once so that you can give them the attention they deserve, and you don't want something drying before you can get to it. Like that needs the red. And I'll just mix up a little bit more red. So time-consuming technique, well worth the effort if you have all day to paint. I'm sure that happens frequently for you. I know for me, trying to paint on the weekends is, you wouldn't think that would be the hardest time, but that is the hardest time because everybody's home and wants your attention and all that. So, yeah, I'm adding a little bit here. It's not really detailed, but it is. I wanted to add this stripe in, and I'm really liking the way the red looks. I wouldn't say it's exactly true to the color on my lamp, but I didn't care because I really liked the way it looked on the body. So add a little bit more here. And then one of the things I wanted dark, and so I think I'm going to go ahead and give one more layer to the body and see what I think. I think what I'm going to do is go for another layer of the red. That's the Peryline red. I'm going to try that. So I'm going to... All right. While that dries, I'm going to begin detail on the shell. And so now I'm done with my glazing for the shell. I'm going to work on getting a nice brown. So I'm going to start with my Peryline red and come over and off my palette I do feel that you can't see my palette if I remember how this works. So I'm going to move that over, shift that over a little bit, and try to shift my palette over so you can see. But I'm coming in and getting the Quinacrodone gold off the palette, mixing it with the Peryline red, and I've got quite an orange. I want a brown, so I'm going to move to the green. And again, let me get that. That is the green Apatite. I'm not sure. Apatite should not be a word that I forget, but for some reason it is. All right, so I'm getting some of the green. I'm coming over towards the end and trying to make a nice brown using the colors that I have used in the Snail. And I think I'm going to get a little bit more water and some more pigment in here. I'm going to take a little of this gold and a little more green. And there we go. It's a little darker. All right. So I'm going to use that for some of the detail. All right. Let me say what I'm doing first. I've got the brown. I'm coming in. It's a little darker than I wanted. So I think I'm going to pick up a little bit of this, a little bit more of the Quinacrodone gold and try to mellow that out just a little bit. And then I'm going in with the tip of my number 8 round, and I'm going to put in the spiral. And being careful not to touch the body below and put my hand into that wet paint. I want to add just a few little stripes in on the shell. I don't really want to, but I'm going to because there are some. So I want to use that same brown, but I think I want to make it just a little bit redder. So it matches the colors. I didn't use the green on the shell, so I want to be careful not to use too much. And I'm just going to add a little more emphasis to these outlines. So this is wet on dry. I'm not doing the glazing anymore. I'm, for the most part, done with the glazing. Okay, that's too dark. I can tell right away I don't like it. So I'm going to pull that up right now while it's still wet and think about what I want to do. Possibly I want more Quinacrodone gold. That might be more of the color that I'm going for. So I took what I had on my brush and I added a little bit of water, a little bit of Quinacrodone gold, and I'll come back over and see how that goes. So I seem to be starting, maybe I'll start down by the bottom and see, that's a little better. But I'm trying to do detail, so I need a little bit of depth to this, to darkness to it. I do not want just a light wash like I was using on the glazing. All right, so I'm going to just now come in and add some of this detail. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna come back and add a little bit more color to it, but I wanted to start out light and then darken it as I go. So all of these should dry lighter. And then this body, again, I'm touching it with my fingertips instead of the back of my hand. That is pretty dry. So I think I'm going to do one more coat. Honestly, I think I'm gonna do one more coat of the Quinacrodone gold. I wanted to do the green, but just a little hesitant. So I can always do another, but I don't want to lose all this beautiful luminescence that I've got, even if I'm making him brown. Clear water, then I'll come back in with the color, I decide. All right, I'm back. I'm going to add the finishing touches, I think. A little Peryline red. Little
Apatite green and some more of the Quinacrodone gold, and I'm just going to give him a few, make sure I keep it light. I can go back in with more color later, but I want to give him a few. He's just got some swirls on his skin that just kind of go down like this, and I want them to be just like, just suggestions at first. I can always add more detail, but I don't want to have to take it out if I don't like it. And those look like stripes, and I'm not loving that. So what am I doing? I'm going to add some more detail on the shell, give him an eye and a shadow, and possibly another few items. So I've used 4 colors. I didn't end up using the Lunar Blue and the Moonglow. I stuck to 4 colors and just used the lemon yellow as that first layer. And this is okay with me. It doesn't, I don't need a lot of, not sure where I'm going here. Should stop talking and focus. So I'm doing his eyes. This is again the number 8, but the number 8 round from Grumbacher comes to this great point, and so it works for me. So I'm giving him just a little bit of an eye, and usually their eyes are actually at the end of 2 little feeler type things, but this one isn't since it's my lamp. And then I'm just going to come over here and with this little bit of a darker color do a little bit of an outline, add a little bit more dimension to the spiral. I don't really have a light source, so if he's casting a shadow this way, the light is coming from that end, but honestly I was so worried about the glazes I didn't really focus on that for now. So I could add some more shadow in and lift some out for a highlight, but this is getting to be an all-day painting. So the glazing takes a lot of time. I want the dry brush, so I'll get a little of that off. It's kind of red, but that's all right. And I'll just come in, and it's a little redder than the other one, but I don't mind because it's giving me another bit of dimension. I don't want too much, just enough to give some texture. He's got a little up here, and I'll do a little down in his throat area here. I want a little bit of a line here, so you know he's got something going on there. I'm going to add a touch more color to this eye just to give it a little shadow over here and over there. And I think if the light is coming from here, the dark is here. My shadow is going to be there. I have to remember to put the shadow in, but I'm going to just put a little bit more of this color on parts of the shell. I want to make the shadow a purplish gray. I'm going to start by using the same 3 colors that I have been using, and I'm going to come in and get a little of that Moonglow. This is the Moonglow. And let's see, we'll go into this first pile and see if I can get this to be a nice purple version of what I have. I'm probably going to get a lot of brown, but I want to make sure the other colors are in there. So a little bit more of the purple. And it's actually looking kind of like the color on my counter. And it's making me want to put a little into the body too, but I don't think I will. All right, so let's see. I drew a little of it. I'm going to make it nice and loose. And just kind of come out over here. That's very brown. Actually, that's probably okay. Put a touch more purple in. And just nice and loose right here, kind of in the shape of the snail. It's quite brown, so we'll get a little more purple in. He's up against the cardboard box so that I could see him to trace him. So, I mean, he really does sort of have those, like the two antennae have a little bit of a shadow. Watch for my review of these Daniel Smith colors that I have, because I'm really digging them. All right. And I'm going to be doing it on planets, on a planet swatch, so that should be cool. Okay, the one thing I think I'm going to do is go in with a tiny bit of this shadow color, and using my finger like I'm not supposed to, I'm going to make sure I have just a nice point and a little bit of this purple, and come in and just add a little bit of shadow in a couple of places, and maybe a little tiny bit of detail, just a little dry brush detail over some of those areas, just to give it a little bit more dimension. So I don't want it too wet. You know, I was afraid to come in with a glaze of this purple, because I've glazed with purples before, not this one, but purples before, and they muddy things up. In fact, I have a cactus in the works for a glazing video, and my first one that I did, I couldn't figure out why is it so muddy, and then I realized it was the purple that I was using, so I have to redo it. But I was real hesitant to get this purple on here, but I'm really kind of liking the little bit of extra it's adding, and I think I'm actually going to do a tiny bit on this part of the shell, just the slightest. I'm not sure that's actually necessary, but we'll put a little in. All right, I think I am done with my little snail. I want to call it good. Thank you for watching. Please hit thumbs up and subscribe. All right, I just wanted to show off the final result. The one last thing that I did was to come back with a little bit of that purple mix that I was using for the shadow, and I just added just a touch bit more to the shells. You can see there's a little bit of purple on the shell when I go up close. I just felt that the shell needed just a little bit of something else. And overall, I'm pretty happy with it. The one thing I would change while I'm standing here looking at it through the lens would be to maybe extend that shadow out. So let me see if I can film this while I do it. Probably not, but anyway, I would bring the shadow underneath the snail a little bit. So that's something that I can always go back and do later. But I wanted to end, get a little more purple, and get that in there a little bit. And yeah, I just feel like he needs a little bit more. And I made my shadow a little darker, so I'm going to take some clean water and just try to blend it into the shadow that's already there. So pardon the bad filming, I've already taken the phone off the stand, and it's starting to, you know, I'm bouncing around and stuff, but I did want you to see that I was making a few more changes. I'm just fixing up the shadow and darkening it a little bit. I'm trying to blend that in. Trying to do it through the phone is interesting. All right, I am happy with him. He's a cutie.